Hi, it's Hazel, and welcome to my channel, Hazel Anaka Design. I wanted to come back today and show you some of the incremental progress I've been making on the paper cloth. On this one, which you may remember if you saw the previous two videos, I'll try to link them, was just one napkin torn up and laid down on that muslin fabric. So, love the color. I happen to have these Nuvo drops, and it's the vintage one, so it dries matte. So, one day I just sat and added those little dots. I tried to find all the circles, and of course, because the paper had been overlapped and, thicker in some places, one thickness in others, the distribution of the dots is pretty random and irregular, but that's okay. So, of course, I think it says, excuse me, full matte effect after 48 hours. So it's not something that you get a whim and do and think you're going to do the next step. So if you have any of this around, it could be one option for how you take your paper cloth to another level. So there's that. Now I will add this back into the pile, and someday the spirit will move me again. I'll get another idea about what to do next, and we'll just incrementally keep working on these papers. So that's that one. Now, if you, excuse me, you may remember that I thrifted a wreath that was made of these three fabrics, squares, that size, just pinned into a styrofoam base. I took it all apart. I also did my rant about this stuff, this release paper that you can't stick down with love or money or glue of any kind. Incidentally, thank you, Veronica, for offering to buy it from me, because she has a plan. She has a purpose for it. I don't even know if I showed the whole design. Okay, so it's got this ornate part. Love the watches, like the pocket watches. Got to throw in some butterflies, a little scallop thing, some script, some foliage and flowers. So anyway, sorry for the rustling. But anyway, this was driving me insane. So I said in that last video that I would use scraps of that, and because I had less of the red and just wanted it to be sort of the pop of color, that I would layer those two elements at the intersection of these other squares, because of course they weren't perfectly the same size, and nor was my sewing of them perfect. So I didn't bother trying to glue, because that's a waste of time and effort. I just started sewing, positioned the two things, alternated horizontal, vertical, blah blah blah, and I thought, well, okay, I did that in two directions. Somehow it didn't seem like quite enough, so I did some more sewing. I only used 2 bobbinfuls of thread and 500 yards. No, I have no idea. I've got lots of thread. That's not an issue. But I think this now is more, still there's some little flippy up bits, which if it becomes an issue, like, okay, here maybe it would be an issue because it wants to curl back on itself. I'll probably just, do a little dab of art glitter glue. I will not waste time or glue with that release paper. Now, what Veronica said in her, and Veronica, I haven't had a chance to get over there yet, but Veronica Walker has just started a YouTube channel. So I think she's maybe only posted one video so far. So you can check her out and subscribe and offer some moral support. Because goodness knows, let's all think back for a moment to to the day we first posted our own first video. And, you know, there was some, some trauma involved with them. Do you see any others? Okay, maybe this guy here. Anyway, so Veronica in her comments said that that release paper is used for, oh my God, what did she say it was used for? Not die cutting, because that's what the woman at the store told me. Oh, great. Don't you love stories where the person telling them forgets the punchline? If I think of it, I will, or if I look it up, I will add it in the description box. Okay, so I wanted to show you that. And then, because, okay, it's September 11th as I'm filming this. Don't know when it'll be scheduled. I am, as I've said before recently, really kind of cramming through these videos because I need a bunch in the slush pile and scheduled so that when harvest starts for us, obviously it started for many other people, then I can not worry about leaving you guys in the lurch. Okay, another person, and I will link or do channel mentions in the description box, both for Veronica and for Caroline on the hillside. Now, I binge watched several of Caroline's videos. Okay. And this is a reflection of me, not of her. I didn't know she existed until Brenda Clark, aka the Simple Crafter, told me about her. So I checked her out because I thought if Brenda likes her, chances are I'm going to like her as well. And I do. And I've been watching her videos as much as I can. And I comment and she comments, and you know, kind of something is developing there. So that's great. And I guess just to pause for a second and reflect on what I just said, that's how our little world expands. We make overtures to other people, whether in person or through our comments. And if there is reciprocation and if there is response, because sometimes you get Zippo for response, if there is response, then one thing leads to another, and one person leads to another, and those people lead to other channels. And that's how our web and our knowledge base and our friendships and our relationships continue to grow and get richer. Anyway, back to the job at hand here. So one thing that Caroline on the hillside does quite a bit of is doodling. And one of the videos that captivated me was how she just doodled. This is a free publication that you know, we can pick up in Edmonton at, you know, almost everywhere. I haven't even flipped through this one. So it's like any other magazine, a combination of editorial. Oh, look at these Ukrainian girls. Let me rip those out. Like I said, I haven't even looked at it. Anyway, combination of editorial, ads, photography, stories, and so on. And, oh, look at this. One of the things she does is she just randomly opens, oh, here's an insert inside. she randomly opens to a page and she just begins doodling, usually with a Posca pen, with Posca pens, uses a lot of black and white. And I thought, well, I've got Posca pens, I've got magazines, I know how to doodle. Why don't I do that? This would be a great page because of the color blocking. Anyway, and it's such a portable little craft. You know, most of us carry a bag of some sort. So grab a magazine, grab 2 or 3, you know. I think if you love little containers as much as I do, you probably have pencil cases and pouches and makeup bags, thrifted and new, and, you know, all of that, that it's so very easy to do it. So I thought, oh, Palm Springs, Edmonton. Well, anyway, we don't have time to read any stories today. Oh, yeah, this is some kind of public art here, across from the Citadel, actually. Anyway, so that's kind of one of the things that stuck with me about Caroline. I also know that Carol, Crinkled Path, Carol, loves doodling with her Signo, Uniball Signo pens. So one day I was at Michael's. I think I still have part of a gift card left, and they had their pens on sale. Now, of course, there weren't very many colors left, but we know white is a basic, and who doesn't love gold? So there was a deal on buy whatever and get whatever. So I bought several of these because that's basically all I could get. Oh, I see. I put 2 in my, okay, these were in the cupboard or on my shelf, and I see that I threw 2 in there. So let's not open them all, Hazel. So anyway, what I thought I would do today is just reach into my bag of goodies here. I don't know if I have a small black, like a thin black Posca or not. Because this is napkin, it is rough. So I don't really want to try those Signo ones on it because I think it might wreck the tip. There's white also. I don't know if I have a broader white tip. Anyway, we're not going to get this all done. Oh, I guess I could also pick out some. Well, there's a bit of orange. This is probably too dark, but then that's a way to, oh, and there's green, glittery green. And then there's also, well, this is Grandin Toy Brand, but obviously just markers as well. We've got some purple. We've got this, I think they call it coral pink. We've got that. We've got this. This is just pink. Okay, let's move some of the, we don't want the red, I don't think. Okay, move that out of the way and let's just plunge right in. So what I like about this particular watercolor, or not napkin, is that it looks like a watercolor. And it's got that loose, what my old art teacher would call painterly look. So whoever designed this napkin probably would have laid down some color and then gone in and done that very loose, broken line around the flowers, around the leaves. So that we can build on that. We can add to that. I should also grit my little scrappy thing here just to make sure I don't blob on the napkin itself. Maybe let's do, now this will be a thicker one, but we have a bit of orange. Now, when you hear that ball, Like, it's like when you're shaking a paint can. Usually the instructions will say to shake for 2 full minutes. Of course, in a spray can, we're talking about much more, liquid than this. But I think you want to, kind of do your best to do a little bit of, that's almost fluorescent. Oh, it is fluorescent. Well, what the heck? We like to live on the edge. So I'm just going to, again, echo that loose, painterly feel. So very, like I'm not trying to, strangle this pen to death. Got a very loose grip on it, so a relaxed grip, a loose arm. And just barely touching the paper. And is anyone going to go back and say, oh, you missed a spot, or why is that line broken, or do you realize you went into the pink when you said you were doing orange? Banish those kinds of thoughts from your mind. Now you see I've moved my hand to the back end of the pen, and that is creating kind of a different look and maybe a skinnier look than where I first set the pen down. So I'm almost twirling it just to, again, add a little more interest to the mark making. And of course, in art circles, we always want to throw in the terminology mark making. It makes us sound very sophisticated and like in the know. So I'm mark making, and I hope you do some mark making. Okay, that will probably suffice for now. Let's reach for some purple. Now, when I was laying this down, I did try to do, a wee bit of a balanced distribution of colors. See, I didn't get any purple over here, so maybe that's a place to introduce some purple. I could pretend that was purple there. That's an imaginary flower right there. This could also be a way to, change the distribution of color or balance the distribution of color if that's your goal, and also to create definition and fill in those areas that maybe aren't quite as dense as some others. So let's see how this color actually compares if we wanted to. We're just kind of basically enlarging what's already there. And you see I just crisscrossed over the orange. So the point of this whole exercise is, number one, to have fun, especially if you're a farmer and you haven't started combining yet, and you see there's been a downturn, a deterioration of the weather, a cooling, and you wonder when your crop is going to be ready, and you wonder when hubby's going to say, okay, the wheat is ready, we're going, in about that tone, and with about that much notice. This is a good kind of stress reliever, Zen practice. You know, when I think if you pay attention, okay, put your hand up if you've ever been in a boring meeting. Can I put 2 hands up? When people are bored, and that could be like in person in a meeting, or perhaps I feel like I want to use some purple as stamens as well, but where should I do that? Maybe here. If you have been bored out of your ever-loving mind in a meeting, or if you're talking to a long-winded friend, relative, on the phone, where they can't see what you're actually doing, you have probably begun doodling. And I bet my bottom dollar that you probably doodle the same design over and over again. So when I doodle, I do a loose, I don't know if there's such a thing in nature, petaled flower. You know, I don't even know if I use a uniform number of petals. Let's try some white and see what happens. But flowers that look much like this. And I will just doodle that all over, you know, whatever is available. So by introducing this white, we're going to get some contrast. Okay, I just did those stamens in the middle of nowhere. Now that pen is obviously thicker than my white one, which reminds me, maybe I should be buying, or do I have one? I do have to get to the art store sometime soon, maybe even this week, because my Yoo-Hoo is on sale in their back to school sale. And I usually buy 2 12-packs at a time. Anyway, okay, we're not going to panic. I mean, that's big, obviously, but maybe I can pick that up and just spread that. And I may choose to add some of those now that I have that big blob there. I'd have to repeat that someplace else. Anyway, back to the doodling and what you doodle. Oh, this white pen is a pain in the you-know-where. Anyway, whatever it is that you doodle, this almost looks like the head of a Queen Anne's lace, if you know what that is. I could also, and this is something that Caroline does quite a bit of, is sort of just, you know, adding dots and outline, you know, on the perimeter of something and adding emphasis that way. And of course, it doesn't have to be around every single line, because then maybe that becomes a little too contrived. You probably want to do that, though, in areas where the contrast will be most visible. So it's not going to be that effective here where it's really light, but it will be more effective in these darkest areas. Now, if I had the broader point pen, so this one is the 0.9. This one is, well, it gives a range, so I don't know why that is like that, but it says 0.9 to 1.3 millimeters. This says 1.8 to 2.5 millimeters. You can change the look of your dots, obviously, by, if I pressed harder, now it might be dangerous with this particular pen that wants to blob. You could go over, don't want to stick my hand in anything wet. You can enlarge the dot just by sort of pouncing, or you could use a thicker pen. You can also change the look of it by changing the distance between the dots, or maybe leaving some gaps. So once you kind of let loose and admit or acknowledge or believe that you can't wreck anything, you can begin to throw caution to the wind and have some real fun and break some barriers, perhaps. Now, when I've doodled on air, on camera before, people have said, oh, it was so relaxing. Well, I'm glad. And for those of you who like to listen to me talk or babble or philosophize or whatever the word is, then thank you. I appreciate that you stick with me. But if you feel relaxed watching me, imagine how much more relaxed you would feel if you were the one doing the mark making. And so, in other words, I appreciate you watching, but I really hope you pick up some pens, and do this yourself. And of course, if you haven't made this paper cloth, it doesn't really matter, because you can doodle on anything. You can, as we did on that digital of mine with the feed sack quilt pieces, you can doodle on a digital, you can doodle on in a coloring book page, you can doodle on a book page, you can doodle wherever your little heart desires. Okay, maybe it's time to introduce another mark type of mark. So maybe now we're going to add some dimension or some interest to some of these flowers that are just kind of big blobs of color. Now, is this how this particular flower, whatever this unnamed flower is that how the veins are? Who knows? Who cares? We're not doing an anatomically correct study of, for a botany book. We are adding elements that please us, that make us think, oh yeah, that is cool, man. I have to say, I don't particularly like what I've just done, but I have to believe and act the way I advise you to act. In other words, to not lose faith, to trust the process, to believe that whatever comes after this will be another chance, maybe that's the word, another chance to change it into something I like more. Now, because these are flowers, because they're, living things and nature, botanical, sort of that organic, free flow, Mother Nature has never made a mistake kind of imagery, I'm unlikely in this particular context to go with any very hard or regular lines. I mean, that could be a choice. Because then it creates a focal point. It creates, oh, this is unexpected. And maybe now that I've said that, maybe I should actually do it. So, well, let me outline this a bit. Again, broken line, painterly line, missing the petal altogether in places, because that creates that sort of looseness. But maybe right here, maybe I want to insert something very linear. I like that because I love this color. This is dark red. Would I have loved that as much if it was green? Yeah, probably not. And of course, you don't ever, well, never say never, I guess. As a rule, you don't do one-ofs unless that is very clearly your focal point and you want the person's eye to be drawn only there. So it behooves me to repeat that square with the little grid inside over and over again, because that's going to help carry the viewer's eye through the piece. Now, I haven't measured anything. I'm just eyeballing it. If I wanted to draw attention to a particular area, what I probably would do is, well, let me do it. I could make a teeny tiny one. I mean, that wouldn't draw attention, but it would add interest. But again, I'm not going to do one of those, so let's do another. However, if I really wanted to say, look here, look here, look here, I would do a great big one. Same color, same design, just much bigger. So should we do that? Maybe let's do one right here. Do you like that scratchy sound of the pen going over the rough napkin? Now I could have picked any color to do these bits with. I'm glad I picked this one because it is a color that I would automatically be drawn to. And it seems to be pleasing with all the pinks and peachy, orangey colors. Would it have been as effective, say, with green? I don't know. I'm not the person that would have tried that, to be honest. I could also have part of the design bleed off the edge of the page. We always know that that is another really reliable design element. Maybe I throw in another size here. Oh, did I do another baby one? Oh, I've only done 2, so I might have to do a few more of those. Again, 2 does not exactly a pattern make either. Now, what would happen if I did it on something like this? Maybe I could do another little baby one here. And you'll notice also that I keep turning this around. Not only because I want it to be equally as good no matter how you look at it. Like, who knows, maybe this gets used this way. So I want it to feel like, oh, yeah, that works. But also, now this pretty well dries instantly, but I also don't want to be dipping the heel of my hand into wet ink. Here's a big patch of purple. What happens if I do it here? Oh, it's not going to really show. Yeah, that was a waste of effort. Maybe here it would show, though. So again, by using your different elements in different ways, in different places, the layering begins. So I started out with that orange line, and in places I've gone over it. So that means that right there, that orange line is under that red line. Here it's under the purple line. I drew some, I don't think I've disturbed any of my little dots, but I don't know how long we've been at this because, of course, time flies when you're having fun. Oh, 37. Okay, I'm going to do a bit of black, and we'll call that enough for today because I do want you to grab your own paper, whatever it is. I said it could even be book page if you don't have anything else. And why don't I do, just for, again, to break things up, why don't I do a stitch line? And again, it's up to me to decide, do I want to stop when I hit that line? Or do I want to go over? Do I want to stop at that leaf and pick up on the other side so it looks like the leaf is on top? Maybe I do. So I will. Do I distort reality by something like this? Like, okay, what's on top? What's behind? And I think that is probably why I love, and I've always loved, long before I knew what junk journals were, that's why I have always loved the look of collage, mixed media, assemblage, because you would never tire of it. So if you knew that you were going to be spending time on a desert island, that's kind of what I would want to have with me. Some very sophisticated and detailed collage, because it would keep me intrigued until rescue arrived. Like, is this, I mean, hate to blow my own horn here, but is that not really starting to just make your heart happy? Now, obviously, I'm not finishing this today because, like, when is finished? When is something finished? That's in the eye of the art maker. Although, if you've been to art class and have learned how to do art critique, you know that, yes, there is a point at which you can go too far. But let's face it, we're not making fine art here. We're making art that makes us happy. Anyway, because I plan to get to the art store very soon, I will pick up a wider white pen, Posca pen, for this very reason, so that I can add more of those white dots, because there's something, I don't know who was the first person to discover that. There's something about those white dots. I don't know, is that, when you look up the dictionary definition of whimsy, is it just white dots that they have? Now, it seems to me, well, I said I would stop, so I'm going to stop, or at least stop as far as you're concerned. I think that these little these little boxes here, are a nice counterpoint to all the flowy lines. But I'm wondering if at some point I will be tempted to add other rectilinear shapes just so that those boxes are not there all by themselves. And as I'm pondering this, and of course I'm just thinking, I'm thinking in real time, I feel like maybe I need to do that in green. Because let's face it, look at this chicken. She's doing it right against the edge of the page. Chicken. Is this because the leaves tend to be sort of elliptical? I don't know. I don't know. Now, because this is a fairly light green, it's maybe not as evident what I'm doing as it would have been had it been like a dark forest green. Maybe I need to go a little wider, a little longer. Maybe I end up having to outline it in black. Don't want that Christmas red-green phenomenon happening. Maybe I have to be really bold and go make this really long. In the comments, perhaps you would like to weigh in on whether or not adding these green bars well, this isn't finished, so I guess I was going to say, no, don't do it, because this is not complete. We don't know yet if these green bars are going to be the most brilliant thing I've ever done, or if it was a really gross mistake. But because I like to hear from you anyway, say what you think. And if you need to change your mind later, when more work is done on this, you can say, hey, I'm a believer in the don't dismiss something too soon school of thought. Oh, I wanted to say, and that will be the last thing I say, ha ha ha, you promised you'd stop talking. I love getting your comments. And because I've long been hooked on lifelong learning, I love learning from you. So when you see me struggling or posing a question and you write with the answer, I love it. So, okay, what video was that? Oh, when I did the Etsy shop restock video, and I was showing those junior magazines from the 40s, they had those stories where they'd have a few words and then they'd have a little picture, and then they have a few more words and they'd have a little picture. And I thought, well, there probably is a name for this, but beats me what it is. Well, Carol, Crinkled Path Carol, said it's called Rebus, R-E-B-U-S. So I'm thinking, okay, great, now I know. So I said I'm adding it to my vocabulary. So of course, to have something added to your vocabulary, you better use it fairly quickly. So consider it used. And then someone else, and I'm sorry I didn't make a note of it, in the comments, because I was doing days or maybe a week's worth of replies to comments. Somebody was, I don't even remember what she was talking about. It was probably a haul video of some sort. Said, oh my goodness, such and such is drool worthy. And I thought, okay, I like that. I'm stealing that too. So now you're going to hear me talk about rebus and drool worthy. And because of how this kid's head works, when I replied to Carol, I said, oh, so rebus is probably a first cousin of whatever you call ransom notes. Anyway, I'm stopping there. So I know for a fact that you will see this again. So again, just to recap, only three examples at this moment in time, because probably they're all going to have something more added to them. 3 examples of the possibilities open to us when we make our own paper cloth. So I really, if you haven't tried this yet, I really hope you do, because you will be glad you did. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.